Clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good evening, I'm here with your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Now, as we go through the next 24 hours, it's a case of chasing the cloud, because where it clears overnight, it's going to turn a little chilly, and where it clears tomorrow, it's going to be quite warm in the sunshine. Currently, there is high pressure of sorts to the west of the UK. This is keeping things pretty settled. It has also brought that northerly flow down the North Sea, which has led to a bit of a chilly feel around eastern parts through today, and it's also leading to a fair bit of cloud across central and eastern parts overnight, albeit parts of East Anglia, maybe Kent, having some clear skies. Also clear skies for western parts of Scotland, Wales, maybe southwest England, and under these clear skies, temperatures could drop in rural spots to low single figures, but most places under the cloud holding up in double digits, and some milder, cloudier, perhaps even damper weather pushing across Northern Ireland later on in the night. Starting off tomorrow morning, where we get the clear skies overnight, there could be some mist and fog patches first thing, but these will quite quickly clear. Otherwise, it's a bright start for some, but quite cloudy in a few other places. Cloudy across Northern Ireland, much of Northern England, and across central and eastern parts of Scotland, quite a cloudy start. A bit brighter towards western parts of Scotland, albeit with a few showery outbreaks around the Western Isles, perhaps. Then, as we go through tomorrow, I'm expecting some of the cloud to break up, so most of us should see some bright, if not sunny spells developing. Not everywhere though, cloud staying quite persistent across parts of Northern Ireland and down the eastern side of Northern England, and perhaps eastern parts of Scotland too. Where the cloud does clear though, temperatures should rise relatively nicely. We're looking at highs around 23, possibly 24 Celsius, so feeling warm, perhaps a bit warmer than today. Then as we go into Saturday and the start of the long bank holiday weekend, there could be a few showery bursts, particularly across some western parts, but most places staying dry, and there will be some decent sunny breaks on offer as well. Perhaps more sunshine developing as we go through Sunday and into Monday, and with that, temperatures rising as well. Whatever you're up to, have a lovely evening.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
There's just 2 weeks left to see how you can win your mortgage or rent paid for a whole year. That's a cash lump sum equivalent to 12 of your monthly mortgage or rent payments, right up to a whopping £20,000. Plus, we'll add an extra £5,000 on top for good measure. Make sure you don't miss out as lines close on the 29th of August. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB15 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 29th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good evening. It's me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, on State of the Nation. Tonight, Lucy Connolly, the 41-year-old mother, jailed for a Facebook post and causing an international free speech row, has been freed. Her case escalated the two-tier justice debate after Labour councillor Ricky Jones, who called for far-right activists' throat to be cut, was found not guilty by a jury. Mr. Jones had a jury, Mrs. Connolly did not. Today's GCSE results are the worst in a decade. Just 58% passed maths and 60% English. The Education Secretary says white working-class pupils are being let down. But by whom? Britain's asylum crisis is getting worse. New figures show spending at nearly £5 billion, 32,000 people housed in hotels, and a record 111,000 asylum applications in Sir Keir Starmer's first year. Will he ever get a grip on this? New figures suggest the Prime Minister's Brexit reset deal could hand the EU up to £6 billion of British fish, and ministers reportedly ignored warnings that limiting EU access would benefit Britain. The government denies the £6 billion claim, of course it does, but are our fishermen being sold downstream? State of the Nation starts now. I'll also be joined by my most formidable panel, the historian and author Dr. Tessa Dunlop and the journalist and broadcaster Linda Doobly. As ever, let me know your views. You know where to send them. Mailmog at gbnews.com. But now it's your favourite time of the day, the News Bulletin with Sam Francis.
Jacob, thank you, and a very good evening to you. The top story just after 8 o'clock. Lucy Connolly, jailed after posting a tweet in the wake of the Southport killings, has been released from prison today. The 42-year-old from Northampton was given a 31-month sentence last year, serving 40% before being freed this morning from HMP Peterborough. Her case has divided opinion. Critics called the punishment excessive, while ministers and judges said her post risked inciting serious violence. Connolly will now serve the rest of her sentence on licence under probation supervision. Britain's third largest steelworks has collapsed into government control, throwing 1,500 jobs into jeopardy. A High Court judge ruled Speciality Steels UK hopelessly insolvent, while just £600,000 in the bank against a £3.7 million monthly wage. The Rotherham and Sheffield plants will now be run by the government, while a buyer is sought. Creditors say liquidation is the only way to restart steel production, but Liberty insists the move is irrational and is still hoping to buy the business back. Unions call it another tragedy for UK steel after years of decline in the industry's heartlands. Kemi Badenoch has accused Labour of stalling progress on asylum hotels, despite the latest Home Office figures showing numbers are down from their peak. The Conservative leader says all reductions happened before last year's election, claiming that if that pace had continued, she says, there would be no asylum hotels in use today. New data shows more than 32,000 asylum seekers were still housed in hotels up until the end of June. That's up 8% on a year ago. The figures also reveal a record number of asylum claims, though officials say cases are still being processed faster. Government borrowing slowed sharply last month, falling to £1.1 billion in July. That is the lowest for 3 years. The Office for National Statistics says that £2.3 billion less than the same time last year, and well below expectations. But looking at the bigger picture, borrowing is over the first 4 months of the financial year, reaching £60 billion. That's almost £7 billion higher than this point a year ago, showing the government's debt burden is still rising, even as short-term figures ease. A man has been charged with murder after the fatal stabbing of an ice cream seller in northwest London. 41-year-old Shahzad Khan was attacked in Wembley on Tuesday and died at the scene. Police say 26-year-old Zahir Zarour is now charged with his murder, while 31-year-old woman has been arrested for conspiracy and remains in custody. Mr. Khan, known locally for his ice cream van with a teddy bear on display, leaves behind a wife and young daughter. Detectives say they're appealing for witnesses and extra patrols will be in the area. And the GCSE pass rate has, slipped slightly this year, with 67.4% of grades in England, Wales and in Northern Ireland hitting a standard pass of 4 or C and above. While the proportion of top marks has edged up, exam chiefs say the system is now facing a resit crisis, with record numbers of teenagers having to retake English and maths. Meanwhile, the gender gap has narrowed to its lowest level on record, and the regional divide has also shrunk. But education leaders are warning that the so-called COVID generation is still carrying the cost of disrupted schooling. That is the news on GB News. I'll be back with another update in an hour's time. Now, though, over to Westminster and Jacob.
Welcome back to State of the Nation. Lucy Connolly, the 41-year-old mother who was sentenced to 31 months in durance vile over an Twitter post during last summer's unrest, has been released from prison. Her case has been at the centre of free speech debate ever since her conviction. The Prime Minister has faced endless accusations of two-tier justice, two-tier Keir has become his nickname, and the politicisation of the judicial system since her sentencing. The accusations escalated after Labour councillor Ricky Jones, who had called for far-right activists' throat to be cut and made a slashing signal across his throat at an anti-racism rally, was found not guilty of encouraging violent disorder by a jury. But this is the key. Mr. Jones's case had a jury and Lucy Connolly's did not. Juries did not convict Mr. Jones because historically they have often been reluctant to convict in cases that seem political. So I doubt they would have convicted Lucy Connolly either. Mr. Jones was charged with encouraging violent disorder, whereas Mrs. Connolly was convicted of inciting racial hatred. But both were essentially the same idea. They'd both said really nasty, stupid things in a heated political moment. They were both caught up in a debate and phrased themselves badly, rather than actually wanting terrible things to happen. And it has to be remembered that Lord Hermer, the Attorney General, you know, the one who always wants us to be governed from abroad, personally approved the charge against Lucy Connolly. There was a lot of government involvement. And when the riots started to erupt following the Southport attack, the Prime Minister was very quick to encourage the fast track of convictions for rioters, and the Home Office put out a tweet saying that they were criminals. But let's have a look at what Starmer himself had to say.
I won't shy away from calling it what it is. Far-right thuggery. I want you to know that this violent mob do not represent our country, and we will bring them to justice.
But where was the Reverend Starmer when 3 women who displayed paraglider symbols on their backs during a pro-Palestinian protest following October 7th avoided prison sentences? The outcome of these trials is not an example of two-tier justice. It's an example of the politicisation of the judicial system jeopardising the right to trial by jury, which was affirmed as long ago as in the laws of King Ethelred and reconfirmed in the Magna Carta, Judicium Parium Suorum, that is to say, judgment of his peers, one of our great and most ancient rights. Lucy Connolly was, in my view, quite wrongly held on remand for 72 days by order of honoured Judge Rebecca Crane, when there was no discernible risk either of her absconding or interfering with witnesses, nor was the charge of such seriousness that remand would be practically automatic. Holding her on remand could have had the effect of pressurising her into pleading guilty, because the backlog in the court system meant that somebody who protested her innocence might be kept on remand, awaiting trial, for longer than the sentence that would be applied if she were to plead guilty. Thus, her law encouraged her to plead guilty, which was a de facto plea bargain. And as you know, plea bargaining is not allowed in this country. The scandal of Lucy Connolly's treatment is not the fault of a jury. Have confidence in juries, but rather the lack of one as a result of the politicisation of an independent judicial system. As ever, let me know your views via mailmog@gbnews.com. Well, I'm now joined by the Associate Editor at The Daily Sceptic, Laurie Wastel, and my panel, historian and author, Dr. Tessa Dunlop, and the journalist and broadcaster, Linda Duberly. Laurie, thank you for coming in.
Good to be here.
It does seem that the remand issue is at the heart of this, because for an offence of that kind, where there's no risk of the accused absconding or intimidating witnesses, it's very rare to be held on remand when the prisons are so full.
Indeed, and I think what you could actually consider here is the actual offence he was charged with, which is this very, very serious offence which has been around since before we had the internet. 1986 is the Public Order Act that created that offence. And it had historically never been used for online speech before. There are other people who made similar comments in relation even to the Southport disorder and who were charged under things such as the Communications Act and other offences who got quite trifling sentences, 6 months, or even there were people who even accused of Lucy Connolly's own offence who got a suspended sentence. But it was partly because she was accused of this offence, which, as you mentioned, I mean, it had to be personally approved by Lord Hermer, and she faced a potential penalty of 7 years in prison for it. That was partly why she was held on remand, because it's almost chicken and egg here, but it was deemed so serious, this offence. But that really allowed, later on in the process, the judge who sentenced her to take into account what she said, not just in terms of whether it had materially incited violence, but whether it was deemed to be racist. And that's why people have a sense there's some politics coming into this.
Well, there seems to have been politics in it, because the Prime Minister got involved very early on to say that this would all be fast-tracked. And we know that the legal system is working extraordinarily slowly. But suddenly, all these people were charged and tried within weeks and months, rather than the years that it seems to be taking in other cases.
Absolutely, and we know, in fact, Starmer has history with this operation of the state, because he was, of course, Director of Public Prosecutions back in 2011 during the London riots, and that actually happened across the country as well. He's familiar with that process of essentially using remand really as a bludgeon to try and encourage people to plead guilty.
And remand, in that sense, utterly undermines the basic principle that you are innocent until proved guilty, that people should only be held on remand when there is a real risk of them remaining at large, because at that stage, remand prisoners are innocent.
Absolutely, and, you know, there's the question of, was Lucy Connolly going to offend again? This was not someone who'd committed a prior offence. She, in fact, was traumatised by the whole experience and deleted her Twitter account if it mattered. There was no way she was going to go back on the internet and post something similar, and yet she was treated as if she were some kind of violent criminal, which was just quite extraordinary.
And Tessa, this is why people think that it's two-tier justice, that there was a desire to have some scapegoats, and Lucy Connolly was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. She said something deeply unpleasant, but that the sentence was entirely disproportionate, and they wanted to get somebody.
This is a rules-based system. I think we have to recognise that our courts are independent.
Not in this case. That seems to be the problem. They dance to the government's tune.
She did admit guilt. She pleaded guilty. There was a choice there. Now, some people say, OK, she was advised to plead guilty, but it was her decision, unlike Ricky Jones. And by the way, I don't think comparing two very different cases is helpful. But she pleaded guilty. The time she spent on remand means that we've seen her come out after she served 40% of her sentence. And everything about her case is in line with the structuring around the sentencing and the law at the moment. If you want to change the law and go back to that 1980s law, you can.
Let's look at Mr Jones. Mr Jones' offence was also in last August.
Yes.
If he had been held on remand, he would have been out of prison a week ago. Almost exactly the same amount of time as Lucy Connolly spent in jail. If she had pleaded not guilty and had been held on remand until trial, she would still have served the same length of time in prison. That is what's outrageous, because remand then becomes an arm twist to make people plead guilty. That's why her guilty plea should not be held against her and is fundamentally unfair and unjust.
But she was convicted under it, from what I gather. They weren't convicted under the same law, the two individuals. I don't understand. This is not case with case. It isn't irrelevant. And Ricky Jones said he pleaded not guilty.
Yes.
So therefore, that's why he had a jury. You went on and on about a jury, but that's what happens if you plead not guilty.
The real point is, why did a mother of a 12-year-old girl married to a man with a chronic illness be given a 31-month sentence when there was ample opportunity actually to give her an overnight stay out, to reduce her sentence, to listen to an appeal, to do any number of things. That aside, I think that what happened here is Sir Keir Starmer, and it's not just on this occasion, it's on many occasions, he has reacted too quickly to public opinion without giving it due thought. He cares about what happens in the court of public opinion, not the actual court. And what has happened here is that Lord Hermer stepped in, the whole thing got escalated. She was persuaded to do a guilty plea, and therefore she went through the system because she thought more quickly, and she was denied a jury. Now, I've spent hundreds of hours covering magistrates' courts, Crown courts, right up to the Bailey. And I can tell you that I believe that a jury would have acquitted her.
But if you plead guilty, you're not going to go in front of a jury. And when she went in front of the Court of Appeal, again, she was knocked back.
You plead guilty in front of a jury.
Well, but then the jury finishes.
But then the jury finishes,
yes. But the point is that she was told that if she went in front of a jury, she would be imprisoned for just as long as if she didn't, and actually longer because you get a lower sentence if you plead guilty. So because she was being held on remand, even if a jury had found her innocent, she would still have spent a year in prison. And this really is outrageous.
It's unfair. It's totally outrageous.
And it is the plea bargaining we're used to in the United States, where they go to you and they say, if you plead guilty, we'll give you 6 months in prison. If you plead not guilty, we'll give you 60 years. And this is moving in that very unsatisfactory
direction. Just to be clear, I'm against incarceration for what are smaller crimes, and in the scheme of things, this is a smaller crime. But I feel that also legally, perhaps the precedent was to not set an example, but this was new terrain. It was online. It had 300,000 views. That's far more readers than The Spectator has, for example. So this woman had extraordinary reach in a very short period of time. And there was a real fear last summer as to what was happening, and we're seeing a replication of it happening potentially again this summer. We've seen all the talk of Epping Forest and the 2 individual asylum seekers who've been charged with horrible offences, but actually much less attention has been given to the double figures numbers of violence in Epping Forest from protesters. So there is this
There was fear,
violence.
but that is not helped by putting a mother in jail for 31 months.
Your issue is with sentencing and with the law. We can go back and look at the law.
The issue is one of humanity.
And look at but I agree with you. We put far too many people in prison, and ideally we wouldn't have put Lucy in prison. But that's not the law, and that's not the sentencing rules at the moment.
Lauren, I want to give you the final word on this, because the thing that really concerns me is that the prosecutors and the judge seemed to dance to the tune of the government. And we are meant to have an independent judiciary.
Absolutely. Now, Tessa made that point about it being independent. In fact, it was reported at the time that there was a, quote, shared understanding between the government and the judiciary that they wanted to move these people very swiftly through the courts in order to make an example of them. And we also have to think about the role of Lord Hermer here. He had to decide that this case was in the public interest to bring. It was his role as Attorney General to do that. He did that, and he subsequently actually boasted about people having been jailed for things they did online.
And that's completely wrong. Completely wrong.
Well, he's got lots of questions to answer. Anyway, thank you both to my panel and to Laurie. In a moment, today's GCSE results are the worst in a decade. Just 58% passed maths and 60% English. The Education Secretary says white working-class people are being let down. But by whom?
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Hurrah! If you want violence, death, more drugs, extremely unpleasant men behaving very badly, this is what you go to the ballet for. So this is Rombo Dance, but it's in collaboration with Stephen Knight, who wrote Peaky Blinders and who is writing the new James Bond film that Denis Villeneuve will direct. It's been touring for ages. I've raved about it before. It's currently at Sadler's Wells, and it's only on until Saturday, and then we're done. Please go and see it. We've got a tiny quick clip.
Let's look at it.
Take a little walk to the edge of town and go across the track, where the viaduct looms like a bird of doom as it shifts and cracks. His shadow is cast wherever he stands, stacks of green paper in his red right hand.
Watch Peaky Blinders. Will you understand anything?
I didn't watch Peaky Blinders. I tried. I got about 10 minutes into the episode, and literally they were attacking a man, reached into his mouth and pulled his teeth out in an alleyway. And I was like, nope, not for me. This, I mean, we do get someone actually sort of stabbed in the stomach and some sort of fake entrails come out.
Ballet tries to do the kind of the whole plot.
Yeah, no, yeah. It's the story of Thomas Shelby, and it boils it down to essentials. First World War, a hero, but also because he's violent and brutal. Then building his crime empire in Birmingham, falling in love, tragically and very doomed. I mean, it looks cinematic, which is what I love it. There are moments, and they do these wonderful things where every now and then they just kind of pose, and it's like a still from a film.
So this is absolutely your top one for the week.
I love this. It's
only on
beautiful.
Saturday.
It's finishing on Saturday. It has been going all around the country for a year,
so
but this is your last chance.
GB News, the People's Channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Well, welcome back. I'm still Jacob Rees-Mogg, and we're talking about Lucy Connolly, and the male Moggs have zoomed in. Mary says, hallelujah. So delighted that Lucy is now home with her family. Her incarceration was an absolute injustice. I hope she realises how many of us, the general public, are on her side. And Richard says, free at last. It's a national disgrace. She should never have gone to jail, not for one day. About time she was released. Lucy Connolly is a national hero. Well, that is very clear views on the male Moggs, as always. Thank you. Britain's education system is under fire tonight as GCSE results reveal the worst pass rate for English and maths in over a decade. Just 58% pass maths and 60% English, leaving 2 in 5 pupils failing the most basic job requirement. The Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, the great class warrior herself, warns that white working-class children are being let down, with fewer than 1 in 5 securing strong passes in both subjects. She says this failure is holding back our economy and our society, with calls now growing to scrap the so-called doom loop of compulsory resets. So where do we go from here? Well, my most formidable panel is here, the historian author Dr. Tessa Dunlop and the journalist and broadcaster Linda Dooley. Linda, from 2010 to 2024, education in this country really did very well. There were significant improvements. Can we blame 1 year on Bridget Phillipson now she's taken charge?
No.
Right,
I mean,
it's a pity, isn't it?
I
did want to.
Yeah, but we can't. I mean, I think the problem here is, and I'm a big fan of the old-fashioned 3 Rs. I like basic subjects being taught to children at school, and the top 2 of those are English and maths. We need to do that. We concentrated on that in my secondary school, and I went to a Catholic primary school where we definitely concentrated on the basics. And that's what we need to do now, because those 2 subjects are the core of everything else. And in my secondary school, you could not get into the 6th form without them. It was impossible, because they actually inform everything else. And where I think Rishi Sunak was clever, although it was booed down a little bit, he put a lot of emphasis on teaching of maths, particularly teaching of maths A-level. And I think what we have to do with kids is actually encourage them about all the great things about maths. Now, it was a struggle for me to pass my maths A-level. I've got a very clever brother who's a mathematician, and he coached me, and he was 2 years younger. But I did pass it, and it was critical to some of the things I did going forward, and it's still critical for kids now. So I think unless we address these 2 basic subjects, there is going to be a problem that won't just be for 1 year, it'll be for many years.
Tess, let me bring in, because I don't think we should be too depressed about these results because it's a minor decline. And I think now all the sort of special treatment for COVID has gone out of the system. So in a way, these are more real results. Yep. And if every year results just get better and better, you know it's grade deflation. I mean, it does amuse me that the top grade now is an A double star.
It's a 9.
It's a 9, which is because of grade inflation that an A has had to become an A double star.
Yeah, it's far harder today to do exceptionally well. In our day, there was just a bog standard A, B, C. Do you remember? Really simple, and you never had to take more than 8.
O-levels,
I took 11.
Well, you went to a ridiculous school. But I'm so glad you provided me with that corrective, Jacob, because I'm always being dubbed on this channel as someone who decries and talks down Britain. But actually, while England's grade very slightly ticked down this year, pass rates well above 60% across the board, and in Northern Ireland and Wales, they are up. It's a cause for celebration. Actually, since COVID, we've almost come back fully and beyond with mathematics, and there was an international survey, Pearl, last year, which placed England really strongly on the international spectrum. We were just slightly ticked behind where we were on COVID in English. And the other thing is, yes, you decry the situation for some white working-class communities, particularly boys, but actually, there's also, if you flip that around, because damn lies and statistics, how you read them is all important. We are one of the very few Western countries where our minorities do as well as our white native population, and that's a cause for celebration.
And the boys were catching up with girls this year.
Yes,
there was a marginal improvement in how boys were doing.
Indeed.
And actually, in our PISA rankings, in England, not Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland, in the last 14, 15 years, they've been increasing significantly. So actually, things are going quite well in education.
I think so. Have you just commended Bridget?
No, I haven't. Because,
a B plus, edging towards possibly an A-.
No, because actually the person I commend is Michael Gove. That Michael Gove's education reforms absolutely fundamental. Yeah, and they were, to Lisa's point, they were about traditional education, they were about rote learning. And
there's no room, can I just say, there's no room on the curriculum for all these extra things that children are being taught, which have nothing to do with some of the exams they're going to be confronted with at some point. I think all of that should be taken out of the curriculum. Well, the whole diversity, inclusion, all of that, whilst I agree that it's a terribly important subject, I think maybe that's something you learn outside of school. You shouldn't clutter up the curriculum with these extra subjects.
I don't know, because not everyone's good at the 3 Rs. What's interesting about looking at that lower pass rate for maths and English, the reason is 23% of those people taking maths and English GCSEs are over the age of 17, and they're in a resit loop, and they're failing and failing, and they've been poorly served early on, and that's
Tessa,
what
can I
we've
say
looked at.
that if you say not everyone's good at reading, writing and arithmetic, those form the core. I mean, how are you going to learn geography without reading and writing? How are you going to learn history without reading and writing?
Well, I'm only here because I'm good at drama. I mean, we all have different skills.
You're an historian.
DT, I mean, I'm being facetious, obviously.
I think that's not true. I think you are a good writer. I think you must have loved writing when you were younger.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is that reading, writing, arithmetic form the foundation of everything else.
But I wouldn't take the other things out of the curriculum. I'm not in favour of DEI.
Well, it depends what subject you mean.
But I think there are some things that are pointless, but I think the broad education, I see with my own children that the things they do outside the classroom are incredibly helpful for them in the broader sense of education rather than the pure exam education.
Yeah, I don't really... my son's got a degree in drama. I mean, he's very happy now, and he's a deputy...
Is he employed?
He's the deputy technical manager of the Southwark Playhouse, thanks very much. He worked very hard to get there. And my daughter's an architect, my son's an economist. But they all did some extra subjects, but at their schools, their curriculum was not cluttered up by exams by subjects that were meaningless to them.
And so that's where you need to attend. There's still high absentee rates, which there shouldn't be, and they need addressed. And there is this cohort of individuals who have been poorly schooled early on, which is why they're writing their arithmetic, have fallen behind, and they're in this horrible reset loop.
OK, well, I think that's a point of agreement, amazingly, between my most formidable panel tonight.
A-stars all round.
A-stars all round, 9s all round. Coming up in a moment. Britain's asylum crisis is getting worse. New figures show spending at nearly £5 billion, 32,000 people housed in hotels, and a record 111,000 asylum applications in the Reverend Starmer's first year. Will he, can he, does he want to get a grip on this? And has the motorist finally had a victory over low traffic zones?
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Hot and sunny conditions continue across much of Spain and Portugal. A few heavy showers likely in Croatia. And a fairly brisk wind blowing in Sardinia. Quite breezy too in southern parts of Portugal. But most of Spain and Portugal dry, fine and sunny. Just a small chance of a shower in Ibiza. Much greater chance of seeing some heavy showers across Croatia. Fine and sunny for most of the Greek islands and Turkey. That will continue through the weekend as well. Goodbye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Good evening, I'm here with your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Now, as we go through the next 24 hours, it's a case of chasing the cloud, because where it clears overnight, it's going to turn a little chilly, and where it clears tomorrow, it's going to be quite warm in the sunshine. Currently, there is high pressure of sorts to the west of the UK. This is keeping things pretty settled. It has also brought that northerly flow down the North Sea, which has led to a bit of a chilly feel around eastern parts through today, and it's also leading to a fair bit of cloud across central and eastern parts overnight, albeit parts of East Anglia, maybe Kent, having some clear skies. Also clear skies for western parts of Scotland, Wales, maybe southwest England. And under these clear skies, temperatures could drop in rural spots to low single figures, but most places under the cloud holding up in double digits, and some milder, cloudier, perhaps even damper weather pushing across Northern Ireland later on in the night. Starting off tomorrow morning, where we get the clear skies overnight, there could be some mist and fog patches first thing, but these will quite quickly clear. Otherwise, it's a bright start for some, but quite cloudy in a few other places. Cloudy across Northern Ireland, much of Northern England, and across central and eastern parts of Scotland, quite a cloudy start. A bit brighter towards western parts of Scotland, albeit with a few showery outbreaks around the Western Isles, perhaps. Then, as we go through tomorrow, I'm expecting some of the cloud to break up. So most of us should see some bright, if not sunny spells developing. Not everywhere, though. Cloud staying quite persistent across parts of Northern Ireland and down the eastern side of Northern England, and perhaps eastern parts of Scotland too. Where the cloud does clear, though, temperatures should rise relatively nicely. We're looking at highs around 23, possibly 24 Celsius, so feeling warm, perhaps a bit warmer than today. Then as we go into Saturday and the start of the long bank holiday weekend, there could be a few showery bursts, particularly across some western parts, but most places staying dry, and there will be some decent sunny breaks on offer as well. Perhaps more sunshine developing as we go through Sunday and into Monday, and with that, temperatures rising as well. Whatever you're up to, have a lovely evening.
You've read the headlines, you've heard what those in power have to say. How about now we actually get to the truth?
They would pay attention.
We go beyond the political theatre and tell you what's really going on behind the scenes. For a massive council tax hike, one of the biggest in the UK. Others follow their lines, but we go off script.
You sound like a broken record, just like week after week.
Cutting through the narratives and giving you unique perspectives. That's Ben Leo tonight, Saturdays and Sundays from 9 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christys Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays, I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christys Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Fresh Home Office figures have revealed the scale of Britain's asylum crisis. Spending on the system was at least £4.76 billion last year, with some suggesting the figures are being massaged downwards. At the end of Labour's first year, 32,000 asylum seekers were living in hotels, up 8% on the year before, and a record 111,000 people had applied for asylum in Sir Keir Starmer's first year. Labour and the Tories promised to stop the boats, but the problem is just getting worse. Well, I'm delighted to be joined now by the Shadow Transport Secretary, Richard Holden, along with my panel, the historian and author Dr Tessa Dunlop, and the journalist and broadcaster Linda Duberly. Richard, thank you very much for coming in. This is a difficult subject for the two of us, isn't it? Because we're in charge as things got out of hand, But now it's getting worse, and Labour seems to have no idea of how to reduce it.
I think you're absolutely right, Jacob. Right, we were in charge when things did get out of hand, but we also had a plan of how to get it down. And that was with a deterrent, which is going to be the Rwanda scheme. And now what we're seeing is the small boat crossings up almost 50% this year. We're seeing more people actually in asylum hotels now than at the time of the general election, despite Labour promising to get them down. We're seeing all of the figures going in the wrong direction. And I genuinely think at some point this government is going to have to start thinking about a deterrent again, because all this one-in, one-out nonsense that Sama's putting forward is a total fiction, right? We are never going to get there unless we have a real deterrent, which says if you come to the UK illegally, you cannot stay in the UK.
How squeamish do you think the British people are? Because Donald Trump solved the problem, and 91% reduction in illegal crossings in April, by sending people to El Salvador. Do you think the British are willing to accept that type of solution that is eye-wateringly tough, but we know is basically the only way to solve illegal migrants?
I actually do. And I think, actually, the political class in this country have been too squeamish about it. I'll be totally honest about that. I think we have been. I think we have been for too long as well. And I think it's quite clear as well that Labour, actually, when it comes down to it, don't want to actually solve the problem. It's far too squeamish for them. It was difficult enough for us in government, but at least we had passed that legislation. But they've reversed all of that stuff, all of those powers that we had. And I think Kemi's taking the right direction now. We have to look at the ECHR, because that's the underpinning cause of a lot of the problems that we're facing, because people can constantly use judges to try and get round, and we have to get to that point. And Kemi's looking at it now. Will we have to withdraw? I think we may have to. And also, but we have to get to that point where we have a deterrent and people are sent to another country. If you come here illegally, you cannot stay. That's got to be the basis.
Isn't reform way ahead of us? Because actually we've got to leave the ECHR, we've got to repeal the Human Rights Act. Pushing it to the party conference is all a bit slow.
Look, faster the better as far as I'm concerned. But I would say something else about Reform's position. I was listening to Richard Tice a few days ago on one of the podcasts, and he was saying that he wants to do a deal with France, where there is a processing centre in northern France, and we end up taking 20 or 30,000 a year from France who've come in order to try and do a deal with the French to stop the boats. I don't want to go there. My view, and I think the view of my constituents, is these half measures, whether they're Reform or the Conservatives or Labour, nobody wants that. What we want, if people come here illegally, they cannot stay. And if people do come here legally, students come here, I went to university with foreign students, and they break the law, then they go. Right? And we have to be really clear about these things.
We've basically had too many for too long, and we need net zero migration. That needs to be our
We have to move in a direction where we decide who comes here. That's the fundamentals, and that means no more illegal migrants, and we decide who comes here.
Tessa, let me bring you in on this, because it is out of control, and people are getting really angry, and we're having a bad-tempered polity in this country, which is very unusual.
Yeah, the discourse is poor, and the behaviour on the streets is far too violent too often. Nice to meet you, Richard. I'm sad that you were part of the same Conservative administration which oversaw eye-watering statistics. You said that all the government statistics are going in the wrong direction. I'm no apologist for the Labour Party on this subject, but I have to correct you there. In fact, the number of asylum seekers being processed at the moment is 91,000, so that backlog has come down by 1/5 since they've taken over. At the peak of the last Conservative administration, there were 56,000 housed in hotels. When it became de facto policy, there are now 32,000, and the cost per head of an asylum seeker in a hotel under the Conservatives was a staggering... Do you want to guess what it was, the cost per head of an asylum seeker being housed in a hotel under your administration?
We had a scheme to get rid of them.
Do you want to guess how much per head was being paid for an asylum seeker in a hotel under the Conservative administration?
Well, I can guarantee that any figure that you're going to pull out now by the government, I don't believe what is at all.
£150 a night. By the way, I've never stayed in a hotel in Britain for so much money, and it's come down to still a ridiculously inflated £118 a night.
Let me bring you in on this.
I think we're missing the real... Well, in fact, Richard has touched upon it. What people don't want in this country, and I mean the voter, they don't want people making this a party political issue. So they are blaming Sir Keir Starmer, but they blame in equal measure the Conservative Party for this tyre mess. And now we've got a situation, because of the latest court ruling, that we are going to find incredibly difficult to deal with. Now, I can tell you, because I taught an English programme, I'm normally a journalist, I taught an English language programme in half a dozen hotels after the evacuation of Afghanistan. So I spoke to plenty of asylum seekers. And I know that these management companies that have these contracts have massively expensive contracts, some of them lasting up to 7 years. Now, regardless of what the court has done, you've then got to get out of those contracts, and on top of that, you've got to find somewhere to
All right,
put people.
well, we're going to move on to Richard's specialist subject. It's really,
welcome.
Which is really my excuse for bringing him in, because he is, after all, the Shadow Transport Secretary, and it's to talk about the war on the motorist, which carries on. Last week, the government shelved plans to limit the implementation of low-traffic neighbourhoods, but is the fight back beginning? The High Court has ruled in favour of residents and businesses halting Lambeth Council's proposed low-traffic neighbourhood scheme in West Dulwich. Well, Richard, this is all dreadful, isn't it? The 20-mile-an-hour zones, the low-traffic neighbourhoods, constant war on the motorist. It's got to stop.
I think it's across the piece we're seeing Labour actually undoing some of the good work we'd actually started to do to try and get control of some of these local authorities, which were pursuing this weird woke agenda, you know, which is actually crippling their own local economies in a lot of areas. You can see it in Oxford and on Oxfordshire, real issues there. Now I think if you're from Oxfordshire, you can't drive into Oxford City for more than 25 days a year. It's crazy, these Labour and Lib Dem councils and what they're doing on the ground. It's absolutely mad. And what we'd actually launched back in 2023 was something called a plan for drivers. And that was a few things. First of all, get rid of unnecessary bus lanes, right, for a start. Get rid of 20-mile-an-hour zones where they're not necessary. Have more local peoples actually having a say over low-traffic neighbourhoods being put into their areas. And I think that those are sensible policies in the right direction, which Labour is now rolling back on, which is causing huge problems right across the country.
But isn't this an area where politicians have to lead? Because when you say to people, do you want a 20-mile zone outside your front door, they all say yes. When they then get down for speeding outside their own front door, they all say it's stupid. And that's our responsibility as politicians to make the argument rather than... There's been too much pap fed to voters.
I think you make a fair point. I think there are spaces where 20-mile zones should be there, you know, at school opening and closing times outside primary schools, for example, is a good place to have them. But I was in Germany recently, and that's exactly what they do. Their 20-mile-an-hour zones are limited to school opening times. In the evenings, then they don't have them there. And I think actually we need to get to a place where actually we're just being sensible about this stuff and not driving constantly forwards with a particular agenda, which is, I think, sadly, what's behind too many of these policies.
So can we, for once, this would be a wonderful policy for you to make, copy Germany on the autobahns? Can we at last get rid of Barbara Castle's speed limits?
Well, you will find somebody who has driven on the autobahn at quite high speeds.
What speed did you get to?
I'm not going to get that.
Right.
But it was pretty speedy. And look, I want us to have safe roads. I think it's really important. But I think the crucial thing here is they've got to be in proportion. And I think so much of what we're seeing over recent years has been disproportionate. And I think that's what really annoys people, that unfairness and the impact it has on communities and neighbourhoods where people can't get around or ambulances are blocked off. Those are the things, I think, which people see an unfairness, and that's what we've got to stop. And I just don't believe you're going to see that with Labour. At least with us, you've got people on the side of the motorist.
It's very true. I mean, I used to live in Richmond, and the whole area, which is a Lib Dem control council, the entire area is 20 miles an hour right across the borough. And I think it's incredibly difficult to actually drive at 20 miles an hour. That's the problem. You keep creeping up, and you're only allowed a small margin. You can only go to 22 before you get a ticket. And so you're constantly trying to brake and brake and brake. I mean, it's just so impractical.
The thing is, I've been done for going over 22 in a 20, but I've also had my life saved by the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit.
How do you know?
Because it may or may not surprise you, I was in Mayfair, I'll have you know, and I walked out onto the street checking my the trolling levels on my phone. I mean, you could say I deserved it, but the truth is the man stopped because he was going at a crawling pace. London, 11 miles an hour, I think it is the average speed in central London, and it saved my life.
But in Mayfair, you rarely, I used to live in Mayfair, you rarely get above 20 miles an hour anyway because of the volume
But the point is that actually, because the car was going slowly, even though I walked out in front of a car like a child...
Rich is actually right. You need that speed limit around schools. That's where I can see it's really important, because you've got kids who sometimes dash out onto the road and all sorts of things.
I was out in my own constituency literally a few weeks ago, seeing kids running out of park, and it's just, you know, your heart's in your mouth when you see it.
Yeah.
But it's a bit like the bus lanes. So many of our bus lanes in the country are 24-hour, and you're driving late at night through London or something, and there's absolutely no need for them. We should be timing.
But late at night, it doesn't matter if there's a bus lane because you've got space on the roads to drive.
But you can still drive into it.
Yeah,
A massive
it increases
fine.
the volume anyway.
Exactly.
I will make a confession. In my 1936 Bentley, the speedometer...
You've been on the Autobahn as well, Jacob.
The speedometer is so... No, it's being built at the time. The speedometer is so inaccurate that I have to get one of my children to hold my telephone telling me what my speed is. because in 20 lanes you have no idea.
I can imagine that is
you
true.
have the speedometer saying you're going somewhere...
Well, at least you're not even walking in front with a red flag, Jacob.
I used to enjoy that. Anyway, thank you very much, my panel, particularly to Richard Holden for coming in. In a moment, new figures suggest the Prime Minister's Brexit reset deal could hand the EU up to £6 billion in British fish, and ministers reportedly ignored warnings that limiting EU access would actually benefit Britain. The government denies the £6 billion claim, of course they do, but are our fishermen being sold downstream? And how far would you go to protect your own nickname?
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
New figures suggest the Prime Minister's Brexit reset deal may surrender up to £6 billion worth of British fish to the European Union. The Prime Minister lauded his so-called reset deal back in May as providing security to fishermen.
Scottish Fishermen Association or Federation say your deal is a horror show, far worse than Boris Johnson's botched Brexit agreement. Are they right?
Does it bring down bills? And I think it's really important to see the reaction of supermarkets, of Salmon Scotland. They know it will reduce prices. Does it boost jobs in security and defence, steel, of course? And then, of course, does it take vital measures to help protect our borders? And it answers all of those questions, which I think are fundamentally important for working people. Thank you.
This assurance was given despite the deal giving EU fishing boats secured access to UK waters for at least the next dozen years. Now, a leaked memorandum suggests ministers were made aware of the possible benefits of limiting EU access to our waters, but dismissed it grandly as being small. The government denies the £6 billion figure, but what do the seamen think themselves? Well, I'm joined now by the founder of Renaissance of the East Anglian Fisheries, June Mummery. June, thank you very much for joining me. What's the view of members of your association in relation to this new figure of £6 billion?
Well, I've spoken to various fishermen today, and we're not surprised. We are very used to being the poor relation in this country. And until we take back full control of our waters and the resource and actually put some spine behind our country, then we will always see fishing come up on the news on a regular basis. You know, that's how it is. Every few months you'll see something mentioned about fishing. But does governments past and present ever do anything about it? No, because they don't care. And the figure 6 billion that's being pounded around today, it's actually 6.6 billion. And that's just net to plate. That's only net to plate. So obviously there's a lot more work that would come with taking back control. So we're outraged once more, but we really are used to it, Jacob. I mean, you know, there's nothing else to say on the subject. As you well know, the Conservatives sold out, and now we've got Keir Starmer just pushing the knife in again and twisting it.
Well, I certainly think we should cancel this deal, that 12 years is quite a long time, and any incoming government should turn around to the EU and say, we're very sorry, this deal is over, we're taking back our fishing waters now. Do you think that the fishermen you know would be able to use all the fish that are available after the industry has shrunk so much in recent decades?
Well, Jacob, the problem is that people think that our ocean is full of fish. Unfortunately, there isn't much fish out there. No science has been done reference wind farms and what if that is detrimental to the stock. But, you know, I've got fishermen off the East Coast here. They're not even finding the fish. So if you and I went out this evening and chopped down trees in Sherwood Forest, we'd be over every single tabloid in this country. But we can't see what's going on in our ocean and what we're doing to Mother Nature. That's my problem. Even if I gave you a boat today, there they are, Jacob, brand new boat, £200,000. I'll tell you what, I'll fuel it up for you, and I'll even give you the crew and as much quota as your heart desire. You'd go out there, Jacob, and you wouldn't find anything. It's not there. There is no fish. You know, this is what we're hammered. Well, the EU are hammered at. We don't know if what the wind farms are doing to the biodiversity.
So what can we do? What can we do to get fishing back to where it ought to be?
Well, straight away we need to take back control, and then gradually take back the licences and the quota from the EU. 54% of the UK quota sits with the EU, with foreign businesses. But people must realise, and the great British public must know, that asset, that public asset, belongs to them. The governments haven't been and asked if they mind giving it away.
All right. Well, June, thank you very much for joining me and for being so clear. I'm fully on your side now. A spokesman surrendering on behalf of the government said, this is a made-up figure and not based on any policy that we have with the EU. Under the previous Brexit deal, EU boats were provided de facto guarantees to UK waters beyond 2026. Not sure that's true. The deal we have secured means we can continue to decide and agree annually the amount EU vessels can catch in our waters and gives UK fishing communities long-term certainty and stability. Well, not what they seem to believe, but there we go. The Chelsea football star Cole Palmer is kicking off for the rights to his own nickname, Cold Palmer. The 23-year-old wants his nickname on everything from clothes to toys and now wine. But a prestigious French vineyard, Chateau Palmer, says Mr. Palmer's wine ambitions could chill their own brand, which would be most unsatisfactory as it's really excellent wine, and claret ought not to be served chilled, but at about 65 degrees, just below room temperature. Now, the government's Intellectual Property Office will decide if Cold can sell everything under his chilly brand or if Chateau Palmer will freeze him out. I'm off to Somerset now, and I will be broadcasting from there next week, as I do most years. So next, it's the one and only Patrick Christys. Patrick, what are you going to be talking about this evening?
Oh, well, loads on tonight, Jacob. There's a rogues gallery of really hard and disgusting criminals who avoided prison whilst Lucy Connolly was sentenced to 31 months. The government is looking to procure 5,000 houses to house 20,000 illegal migrants. I think that's a big fat no, isn't it? And Axel Rudicabana has been given prison privileges back in a bid to keep him happy. Absolutely disgusting. All that and much more after your weather.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good evening, I'm here with your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Now, as we go through the next 24 hours, it's a case of chasing the cloud, because where it clears overnight, it's going to turn a little chilly, and where it clears tomorrow, it's going to be quite warm in the sunshine. Currently, there is high pressure of sorts to the west of the UK. This is keeping things pretty settled. It has also brought that northerly flow down the North Sea, which has led to a bit of a chilly feel around eastern parts through today, and it's also leading to a fair bit of cloud across central and eastern parts overnight, albeit parts of East Anglia, maybe Kent, having some clear skies. Also clear skies for western parts of Scotland, Wales, maybe southwest England. And under these clear skies, temperatures could drop in rural spots to low single figures, but most places under the cloud holding up in double digits, and some milder, cloudier, perhaps even damper weather pushing across Northern Ireland later on in the night. Starting off tomorrow morning, where we get the clear skies overnight, there could be some mist and fog patches first thing, but these will quite quickly clear. Otherwise, it's a bright start for some, but quite cloudy in a few other places. Cloudy across Northern Ireland, much of Northern England, and across central and eastern parts of Scotland, quite a cloudy start. A bit brighter towards western parts of Scotland, albeit with a few showery outbreaks around the Western Isles, perhaps. Then, as we go through tomorrow, I'm expecting some of the cloud to break up, so most of us should see some bright, if not sunny spells developing. Not everywhere, though. Cloud staying quite persistent across parts of Northern Ireland and down the eastern side of Northern England, and perhaps eastern parts of Scotland too. Where the cloud does clear, though, temperatures should rise relatively nicely. We're looking at highs around 23, possibly 24 Celsius, so feeling warm, perhaps a bit warmer than today. Then, as we go into Saturday and the start of the long bank holiday weekend, there could be a few showery bursts, particularly across some western parts, but most places staying dry, and there will be some decent sunny breaks on offer as well. Perhaps more sunshine developing as we go through Sunday and into Monday, and with that, temperatures rising as well. Whatever you're up to, have a lovely evening.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
What does it feel like to be a Great British Giveaway winner?
That's a big surprise.
Oh my God, I'm going to cry.
Do you know what? I've never won anything like this in my life.
Oh my God, this is amazing.
That is absolutely fantastic.
We're over the moon.
Yes, that is fantastic.
You know, you have no idea how much I needed it. Oh my goodness.
You've won £54,321.
Please don't joke. This would change my life.
Oh, thank you so much. I was gobsmacked. Thank you, GB News.
I'd say don't hesitate, do it. If you're not in it, you've got no chance of winning it.
Thank you.
You weren't expecting to get that call today, were you?
No, I wasn't.
You really could be our next big winner. Head over to gbnews.com/win now to find out how and get your entry for the Great British Giveaway. Great prizes, even greater wins.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m.